Jazzcast Pros.
Have you ever laid in bed feeling exhausted but unable to fall asleep because your mind just won't shut off? You're thinking about deadlines, your to-do list, or that awkward conversation you had earlier. Does that sound familiar? In this episode of the Doze Podcast, we're diving into the connection between stress, anxiety, and sleep and giving you the tools to break the cycle so it can't steal your nights or sabotage your days. Hello, and welcome to the Doze Podcast, where we shift how you think about sleep, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Soda Kuchkowski, sleep coach and founder of Start With Sleep and The Doze. With over 2 decades of experience, I've helped countless individuals transform their sleep, recognizing that managing stress effectively is a critical part of the journey. Today, we're unpacking the powerful connection between stress, anxiety, and sleep, and giving you the evidence-based tools to take control, break the cycle, and reclaim the restful nights you deserve. So to start today's conversation, I think it's first important to outline the difference between stress and anxiety, as they're not quite the same thing. Stress is typically a short-term response or reaction to a specific situation. So like a work deadline, an argument, or perhaps running late. It usually has a clear cause and it tends to subside once the issue is resolved. Where anxiety, on the other hand, is more persistent. It often lingers long after the stressor is gone, or it might not even have a specific trigger at all. Anxiety is marked by ongoing worry, fear, or unease, and it can exist even in the absence of the immediate pressure. Here's the key distinction. Stress comes and goes with life events, and anxiety often stays even when everything seems fine. And while they're different, they're closely related. Chronic stress can lead to anxiety, and anxiety can make you feel constantly stressed. Both can deeply interfere with your sleep, which is why understanding the difference helps you better address what you're really dealing with at night. Both stress and anxiety can affect your sleep. And when you're sleep deprived, it activates the brain areas like the amygdala, which increase worry and anxiety. And lack of sleep lowers your psychological threshold, amplifying how you perceive stress. So if you feel stressed and sleepless, you're definitely not alone. And I have some eye-opening numbers to back it up. More than 75% of adults experience moderate to high levels of stress every single month. And according to the American Psychological Association, stress isn't just common, it's nearly universal. And the Center for Disease Control reveals that 1 in 3 adults consistently don't get enough sleep. That's millions of us going around through life sleep deprived day after day. And because stress and poor sleep are deeply connected, over 50% of adults say stress directly keeps them awake at night. And when you don't sleep well, stress hormone levels spike, making tomorrow even harder. An important thing to remember is that the connection between stress and sleep isn't just inconvenient. It's a cycle. Stress interrupts sleep, poor sleep intensifies stress, and round it goes unless you take intentional steps to interrupt it. When you're stressed, your body enters fight or flight mode, making it nearly impossible to relax and drift into restful sleep. So you might notice that you have racing thoughts, muscle tension, or a rapid heartbeat. Even shallow breathing. These are all signs that your nervous system is on high alert. And additionally, elevated cortisol levels, that primary stress hormone of ours, interferes with your body's ability to produce melatonin. And that's the hormone that helps regulate your sleep. This disruption reduces your deep and REM sleep stages, which are crucial for memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and overall mood stability. So if you've listened in before, you know that I work with all kinds of sleepers. But my focus has always been on those with demanding lifestyles and non-traditional schedules, like shift workers, parents, healthcare professionals, people who give so much of themselves and are often left running on empty. Stress, of course, is at the core of many of their sleep struggles. And it's not just an emotional stress. It's the physical exhaustion, the mental overload, and the constant toggling between responsibilities that keep the body alert and the brain wired when they need rest the most. I've worked with night shift nurses who say, I sleep when I can, not when I want to. Their circadian rhythms are completely flipped, and even when they're off the clock, their body doesn't know how to power down. I've supported correctional officers facing mandatory overtime who are so mentally overstimulated after a shift that sleep feels impossible even when their body is begging for it. And then, of course, there's the moms, the ones who are getting their littles into bed, trying to steal a few minutes of peace, only to find themselves lying awake, unable to calm their own minds. Sleep ends up at the very bottom of the list when it should be the first step to restoring their energy. Speaking of little ones, next week's episode is a special one. My daughter Ryan is going to be turning 11, and I made her a promise that she could come on the podcast and talk about her sleep. So make sure to tune in next week for an open and honest conversation from a kid's perspective, because good sleep habits should start when you're young, and I'll just leave it there and leave the rest for her to fill in. So these stories are just a few examples of how stress shows up in real life and how deeply it can disrupt your ability to rest. But the good news is you don't have to stay stuck in that pattern. When you understand the connection between stress and sleep, you can start to shift it, and that's where the right tools come in. When you're stuck in the middle of it, your thoughts are racing, your body won't settle, and rest feels out of reach. And it can feel like there's no off switch. But the truth is, there are practical tools that you can use to interrupt this stress-sleep spiral. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. It's just small shifts that can create a big change. So how can you break this cycle? Well, to help regain control of your nights and support your nervous system, I've put together 7 evidence-based tools, and these can be used either individually or together depending on what your body and mind need most. The first is to take and make space, and this is about building a consistent wind-down routine. I want you to dedicate the last 30 to 60 minutes of your day to winding down. I want you to dim the lights. I want you to turn off your devices, perhaps do some light, gentle stretching. These signals tell your brain that it's time to prepare for rest. A second thing you can do is practice progressive muscle relaxation. And this is just gently tensing and then releasing each muscle group, starting from your toes and working your way up. This technique helps to release stored physical tension and encourages a full body relaxation. The next is to use journaling to clear the mental clutter and provide a mental release. And you can start by writing down things like, what did I carry today that I don't need tomorrow? And what would I tell a friend feeling this way? And I'm going to drop in the comments below a better bedtime blueprint, which is going to give you some prompts that you can use if you're looking to incorporate journaling before bed. The next is listing 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for and why. This helps redirect your mind from stress and anxiety to appreciation and peace. Gratitude has been shown to lower cortisol and enhance sleep quality. Distract your mind with mental techniques. There's some great ones if you're someone who can't just turn your brain off. Cognitive shuffle, which is listing unrelated random words in your head, like dreaming while awake. It breaks up linear, stressful thinking and mimics the mental randomness of pre-sleep brain activity. So, for example, you can take a word like bed and then think of a word that starts with B and then E and then D and imagine an unrelated object for each, or you can just pick totally random nouns. So, for example, banana, engine, dog, right? The next is the alphabet game. This is to pick a category and name something for every letter. So, for instance, perhaps animals, right? So, alligator, bear, cat, dog, elephant. You get the idea. The next is visualization. Picture a calming scene, and I encourage you to use all 5 senses when you're doing this. And story building. Mentally replay a favorite story or create a new one. All of these are kind of in place of the traditional counting sheep, right? These are things that you can be mindful and intentional about, but it also diverts your attention so that you're not stewing in those ruminating thoughts. The next is to prioritize daytime habits that set the stage for sleep. What you do during the day matters at night. Getting that morning sunlight helps to support your circadian rhythm, right? Moving your body regularly helps you sleep deeper. Avoiding caffeine in the afternoon, and of course, setting work-life boundaries to reduce carrying over that stress. And my last tip for you is to remember to breathe and incorporate daily pauses. That's just a deep breath in and out. It's a short, intentional pause that you take during the day to lower your stress and reset your nervous system so you're not carrying it all into the evening. It's just a simple check-in with yourself. And this works because it takes the pressure off your system throughout the day to prevent that stress from accumulating and spiking at night. It also teaches your body that rest doesn't only come at bedtime. It's something that you can access throughout the day. You don't have to find a quiet spot The thing that I always tell my clients and the thing I always talk about in presentations is setting an alarm on your phone and kind of train yourself, right? I guess kind of like Pavlov's dog, where you hear this sound and it reminds you to take a deep breath in and out. And you don't have to find, a quiet space. You don't have to be all alone. It's not anything it requires an app or anything. No matter what you're doing, you're driving, you're talking, you're walking down the hallway, you just remember in that moment when you hear that sound to take in that deep breath, and that intentional pause is something that will release both that physical and that mental stress from your body. In closing, stress is inevitable, but sleepless nights don't have to be. By nurturing your sleep, you build resilience to stress. Start small tonight and watch your sleep improve your life tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Doze Podcast. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone who could use a little more calm and a lot more sleep in their life. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you haven't already, download your free copy of the Better Bed Night Blueprint from the show notes. It's packed with journal prompts and relaxation tools to help you break the stress sleep cycle. Until next time, sleep well.